Hello and welcome back to the Humble Ego podcast, a space where I hope we can have truthful conversations about the good, bad and uncomfortable parts of being a creative. It's the last episode of season 1 of Humble Ego.
That's so exciting.
I know, and I'm joined here with one of my really good friends, talented woman, Cameron.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Yeah, I'm feeling very chill today.
I'm feeling so... It's like raining here, guys. Weather. So we're just like in cozy. And I'm just like...
It's cozy weather.
Yeah.
It's nice. It hasn't been like this for ages.
No, it's so good. But yeah, last episode, and I was like, I just want to bring on someone that I can just have the most wholesome chat with. And I
feel like that's like our chats when we just hang out.
Literally. Well, we got coffee the other day and we had the most wholesome chat. And I was like, do you want to come on the podcast? And you were like, yeah.
And here we are.
Here we are. So, first of all, I would like to start. This is how I start pretty much all my episodes with my guests. Just tell me about your story. Just a little, tell us about you. Okay. What led you to here?
What did lead me to here? A lot of things led me to here. So I'm from London originally. I was born in London, lived in London for 6 years. And then me and my family moved to Australia. And from Australia, we lived in Sydney for a while. And then we later on moved to Byron, and I've been like in between Sydney and Byron, I went to school in different places and going to study in Sydney and then coming back here to live now. And yeah.
And you studied architecture?
Architecture, yeah.
Which is crazy.
I'm an architectural designer.
Yeah. So impressive.
Yeah.
You always say it's so chill. Okay. So I met Cam. No, I'm going to even not fast forward. The opposite of fast forward.
Rewind
a little further. I remember I was in Barcelona 2019 and I don't know how, but I started following you. I think mutual people.
And I was unaware of this.
You did not know this.
Yeah.
You did not know who I was.
No,
I was just like a secret little follower. Yeah. I was following him and we were both in Barcelona at the same time. And I remember just being like, do I reach out to this girl and tell her that I think she's really cool? I mean, I should have. Yeah. But I think I was at that age, like, first time in Europe, I was with like this one guy friend that we were traveling together, and I was also like, you don't know me. Like, I would have just reached out and been like, hey, I am also from Byron, and I think you look really cool. Do you want to, hang out? Which I should have done. Like, now I feel like I'm in a way better mindset with that stuff. Like, if someone looks cool online, I'm just like, hey, let's get coffee. But I didn't really do that then. Yeah. Anyway, so secret admirer, and then like 2 years later.
2 years later?
2 years later. Yeah. I hadn't seen you or really... you were a mystery to me.
I didn't know of you until I had a friend who knows you because we live in a small town. Like, everyone knows everyone. Yeah. And she was like, do you know Joy? And I was like, Joy? Who's Joy? Because you do YouTube and I was doing YouTube.
Yeah. And you still do YouTube.
I still do YouTube.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Follow.
And I was like, no, I don't know Joy. And then she showed me your account and I was like, how don't I know of this girl?
Yeah. And I was like secretly admiring you for ages. Like, I remember one time I was like at a cafe called Topshop in Byron and I was sitting there with my friend having like an acai bowl and you like crossed the street and me and her were both like, are you kidding? You were like dressed to the nines. Like, you were like so clearly had just come from the city because you were like wearing like, well, I don't know. It was just like
dressed up for Byron.
I was just like, I love this girl. And I just had this like, we're going to meet one day kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And then, you reached out and we'd both kind of just come back from Europe. Yeah. And so we were just like in the same like.
Same mindset.
Yeah.
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 And here we are.
And then we fell in love.
Yes, we did.
And now, I just feel like we really bonded over just like having a lot of the same mutual like passions and struggles and stuff as a creator. Like, I mean, you're a fucking like I can't even imagine doing that degree, like, but you did that. But then also, this is what's so mind-blowing. Like, when we went and got coffee for the first time, I remember just talking to you and being like, so who is this girl? Because I was like obsessed with you, but I actually didn't know anything about you. And then you were like telling me all these things you're doing, like you were like, I make candles, I sell candles,
all these random little things.
Like I had like my own like little design,
like clothing
that I was doing for a while. Also I do like I work as an architect. I was like, how? And then still somehow you like wake up in the morning, you have your little like morning, you're always like working out, doing your wholesome things, spending time in nature. Like that whole like YouTube social media trend of like that girl, like I've never seen someone like actually be that girl, like, but genuinely, like you're not just putting it on, like you're just always, I don't know how you do it.
I feel like it's definitely something that I've just like developed throughout my life as like a way to cope and a way to, you know, understand myself, and it's just carried its way throughout my life. But I think it's not something that I put on because it's something that I've done for so long.
Yeah.
And it's like been just like a part of me.
Yeah, it's
and
like
a part
practice.
that yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. And I think also when we first met, like, we've talked about this, like at the beginning, like you were so hard to crack. Like I was like
closed.
Yeah, so closed. Like on one hand so open, but then on the other hand I was just like, because you know me, like I'm like, tell me the deep, like open, like let's, you know, talk about everything. And it took a while, and at first I was like, I can't understand, like I couldn't figure you out. Yeah. And then I think at some point in our friendship you just like became so much more, you just like made so much more open. Yeah, that's been this year for me 100%. Just like learning to be more open and and that's just like made all my connections with people so much deeper and so much more fulfilling in every way. Yeah. And is that just, do you think, from just like childhood like traumas and stuff that have
being
like,
closed?
Yeah,
childhood traumas, like past relationships that haven't been healthy, and just things that have gradually told me to be closed. And I think that I'm such a sensitive person usually, and I think that I just haven't been met in a way that's nurtured that. And so I think that definitely led me to just like close off from people and just like exist in my own inner world a lot, which is like you miss out on so much of the beauty of life when you are closed like that. 100%. And I've definitely seen that this year, just like seeing how fulfilling things can be when you are more open and when you do share more with people.
Yeah, but it's scary as well. Like, especially like you said, like if you've had experiences where you've opened up in the past and
you've been met with hardness.
Then you're like, fuck this, I'm not doing that again. Like,
exactly.
It makes sense. And then you have to really like retrain your brain and be like, okay, this is a safe space to like
and finding those people that allow you to do that. And that's what our friendship has been as well.
I know. And then as soon as you started opening up, I was like, oh my God.
Hello.
And it's been so helpful as well, like having someone doing similar stuff with me, because like you do YouTube and like content creation and stuff, and like it's such a weird world. It's a weird world. It's a weird job to have if you don't like I love all my close friendships so much, but so many of my friends are just like not in that world. Yeah, and it's also a weird world to be in when you want to come from a place of authenticity and stay grounded and not like lose yourself in this fake world. I think 100%. Like there is so many people that are it's just an interesting industry of interesting people, I guess. And so having that, like just having you and to talk about it, even just like little things like brand things of being like, is this like what, like for rates and like what do you think about this, and was really helpful. But one thing I really wanted to talk to you about, which I feel like is again something that I really admire about you, is I feel like you're so, from the moment I met you, just so good at like trying new things. Like that's when, like when you were like, I do, like you draw, you journal, you take photos, you take videos, you do YouTube, you do like architecture. Like you are so fucking creative and talented in so many different places. Well, thank you. And like I've tried to dissect it and figure out how. And I think one of the things that I really admire about you that I think has led to that is your ability to just like try new things and not be scared of failure and like learning. 100%. And like that's something for me that's so hard. Like has it always come easy to you to just like try new things? I don't know. I've definitely been working on it a lot, I think, in the past year. And I think also trying new things and also doing things alone a lot more often is something that I've been definitely working on in the past year. And in doing that, I feel like I've let go of a lot of fear. Yeah. And I don't know, I think that every time you try something new and you step outside of your comfort zone, it gets slightly easier to do it again. 100%. And like I can think of so many examples, like not so much in a creative sense, but going camping by myself last year. I remember I did that for the first time. And it was something I really wanted to do because I was like, I love being in nature. I love being alone. Like I think that camping alone would be so fulfilling for me, but I was afraid.
because, you know, you're fucking alone in nature.
Yeah.
Right? Darkness, scary.
Yes.
But I did it. I remember I was terrified the night before I left. I was like, oh, should I do this? Should I do this?
Yeah, I remember talking to you about it even, like,
I
think like one of the times before, and you were just like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And you're like, no, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and I did it, and best, like, so good.
Yeah.
I went for a week, did a road trip, and it was so good. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if I didn't take this leap and step outside of my comfort zone and like face that fear, essentially, I wouldn't have felt this like level of freedom that I felt in that moment, because I just felt so free and unbothered. And I was like, I wouldn't have been able to tap into this feeling if I didn't face that fear. And now every time I'm faced with discomfort, like when I recently went overseas traveling by myself to America for the first time, and that was my first time going overseas alone to a completely new place, and so there was a lot of fear with that and just like discomfort, but I like kept reminding myself, I was like, you don't know how good this could be if you lean into this discomfort. And I think that's a lot of the thing with trying new things, is just like allowing yourself to step into that and be like, you don't know what's going to come if you just take the leap. Like, literally, you kind of have nothing to lose. I mean, sometimes you do, but like, you have to risk to get rewards. Exactly. Like, you have to sometimes take those leaps and stuff. High risk, high reward.
Exactly. Exactly. I know, I remember like you doing all this solo travel and stuff. And I think also when you see someone else doing it, just banged my phone so loudly, it makes you so much more like comfortable to do it. And so it's so nice having you as well, and like having each other to just be like, oh, okay, she's doing this. Like, it gets contagious seeing your friends doing those things. Like if you see someone else and you're like, if they can do it, I can do it. And I was saying to my friend the other day, we were talking about a similar thing, and I was like, that's a great mindset to have, and it is so contagious and amazing to see somebody else do it and inspiring. But then when you've done it yourself, and it's like, if I can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? Like, if I've been on a solo 100%. Trip, I can go on another solo trip. You know, I can do it. Well, starting this podcast, for instance, like, that was like, I was so scared of it for so long, like so nervous, and then like actually doing it now and having, this is like the last episode of the first season, I'm like, have that perspective of like, oh my god, sometimes you just have to do it. But I actually, you know, I'm obsessed with Brene Brown. Yes. And so she has, you introduced me to her. She helped me, you helped me, and then she helped me be more open and be more vulnerable. She is, if you guys aren't familiar with Brene Brown, highly recommend. She's like an author and vulnerability and shame researcher, and she's just helped me so much. Like, me too. Truly on like my journey of like, becoming more vulnerable. And it's seeing it as a strength rather than a weakness. Like, vulnerability and sensitivity. I feel like I've often seen it as like a weakness, or like something to be, you know, just like this world does not support sensitivity and vulnerability, but really and truly that's a strength. 100%. And she fully reframed my brain on that. And in her first episode of her podcast, she did an episode called FFTs. I don't know if you've listened to it, but it stands for fucking first times. And she breaks it down into like the way that she sees it that really like helps her. And so like the first thing that she always says is like, name it. So when you're doing something for the first time, just name it. Just be like, I'm in a fucking FFT right now. Like, I'm doing this for the first time. Like, just naming it. And I, you know, she mentions, and I think it's so true, that like so many people think by naming something you're giving power to it. So let's say like you're feeling nervous, people like, oh, I'm not going to tell people I'm nervous or admit it to myself, because then I'll actually be nervous. But it's like, it helps because it gets rid of the shame. It gets rid of the shame, and it allows you to own your feelings. Like, I'm nervous, that's just how I am right now. Like, that's what I'm feeling, and it's gonna pass. Like, so actually naming it is like such a big thing, and she's so good with like her work with that. It's just like naming those emotions and things we're feeling and experiences we're having, and allowing yourself to feel it. So like doing like something like solo traveling, or going camping, or like starting a podcast, or whatever it may be, just being able to be like, I'm in an FFT right now. Yes, exactly. It's so good. And when you're in that FFT and you're doing something for the first time, not having like such high expectations of it and thinking, I'm going to do this and I'm going to feel amazing. Like, for example, solo travel. Like, I have an amazing time when I solo travel, but then there are definitely moments when I feel lonely and I feel, you know, these other more negative emotions. And it's like allowing myself to feel that, and not being like, oh, now it's a bad trip because I'm lonely. It's just like a moment in the whole, you know? So that's like her step 3 is like expectations, just setting that reality of like, this is like, you know, not just like, this is a first time, and just setting that expectation of like, I might not be great at it. In fact, I'm probably going to fail at it.
Exactly. And that's okay.
That's okay. And as soon as you let that go, then it's like so much.
That's another big thing, I think, with starting things and trying new things creatively as well, I think, is not getting like super attached to the idea of whatever it is that you're doing, and allowing yourself to have freedom to be like, it's not by force, you know, you don't have to do this. You're trying things out. And I think so much about life is just about experimentation and trying new things, because that's the only way you're going to figure out what you actually like and what your passion actually is. Like all those things you were mentioning before, like me making candles and starting a clothing brand and just doing all these random things. It's like, I'm not putting so much pressure on each of these things to be like, this is it, this is going to be my thing. Like, I'm going to have a clothing brand and it's going to be mine. It's going to be mine and it's going to be super successful. And it's like just allowing yourself to experiment with different things and being like, oh, maybe I actually don't enjoy that and I actually don't want to pursue that, but I tried.
Yeah, and that's how I know. Because otherwise you can spend your whole life being like, oh, I wish I was a dancer.
Yeah,
but until you actually try it, you might realize like,
exactly,
you don't like want that.
Exactly.
100%. And then the other thing that Brene always says, like the 3 steps, so it's like name it, expectations, and perspective. So like get perspective. So be like, okay, yes, I'm in an FFT. I'm in an FFT right now, but I won't be forever. You know, that thing of like, think of all the times where you did something for the first time that now is like just so chill. Like even like driving for me. Like I remember fucking to learn how to drive was
terrifying. As a kid, I was always like, I'll never be able to drive. Like I thought it was terrifying.
And even when I started learning, like, it is
driving a weapon basically.
But like, yeah, when I started driving, I remember just being like, how am I meant to remember and do all of this at once?
And everything.
Like I was like, so you have to look there and now we step into a car every day and like, there's risk.
There's risk, but like, there's no fear.
Yeah, there's no fear, and it feels like something that was so hard at the beginning is so easy. And being able to have that perspective and be like, okay, yes, maybe doing this right now is really hard, but it's not going to be hard forever, and the only way to get there is through.
It is
also really, really helpful.
Yeah, and just like knowing that whenever you enter a something for the first time, it's like, this is hard because it's the first time, but it's going to get easier. It's always going to get easier.
100%.
If you allow yourself to try.
Yeah. And it's so important. I feel like in today's world, definitely like social media and stuff, like I feel like less and less inclined to step out of our comfort zones. You know?
I think a lot of that on social media as well is to do with the fear of perception and how people are going to perceive you as well.
Yeah.
I think that if we lived in a world where people weren't constantly seeing what we were doing, and you know, I think we sometimes the fear of starting something is sometimes making that announcement and saying, I'm going to do this, and being like, what if I actually don't follow through with this? And then everyone's going to think she didn't live up to what she said she was going to do. It's like, we're
just so scared of failure, and like the idea of like, just people being able to witness that on another level now is so scary. And like, I just think also like social media makes things so much more comfortable. Like instead of that scary thing of like asking someone to go on a coffee date for the first time or whatever, like it's so much like we just use social media as like, I'm getting connection through that, or like using dating apps. Like we can just hide behind so many things now that I feel like so many of us are less and less inclined to push ourselves to do things that
in the real world
might not be easy, and that we are doing things for the first time. And that's why I think it's so important to push ourselves. Like I'm fucking going to London in a few days.
So exciting. But like from that, so much is going to come. You're opening yourself up to so many more opportunities. And like, scary, but from that discomfort, I think there's a feeling of discomfort sometimes that's like, this is the good kind of discomfort. 100%, you know,
like listening to that gut feeling that's like, sometimes it's like wrong way, go back, and sometimes it's like, nah, you got to do this because you're gonna grow, and like this is where and I'm really feeling that. Like I'm like, I just have to do it because I'm doing an acting course there for like 3 months, and to be honest, the only reason I have the courage to do that is because I pushed myself last year outside of my comfort zone and went to London for
It's like little building blocks.
Exactly.
You don't just start and just suddenly go to the skyscraper. You've got to start small. You've got to start with small foundations and gradually build up. And I think that a lot of the time, because of social media as well, we see people doing things, and we are so constantly like exposed to other people's lives, and we see people doing things that are maybe like up here, but we don't see the progress, we don't see the journey. And so we get tricked into thinking that you're going to just jump from 0 to 100, but there's so many levels to it. And I think the perspective is just important to remember, that small steps,
literally,
so
important. And there's no shame in that. Like, breaking it down, making it simpler, taking it step by step. Like, I don't know why so many of us have this like huge expectation of us for it to be like...
Huge expectation, especially in our 20s, I think.
Yeah, just like to have it all together and all good. And I think also like so many of us are like so comfortable with like, when you're a kid, you're learning and you're fucking up and making mistakes. But then when you're an adult, you're meant to like...
know what
stop
you're doing.
That. Yeah. And like so many people are so scared. Like I saw in your like New York vlog, like you did a summer class. And I was like, fuck yes, Cam. Like so good. But like how many adults are out there that are like, oh no, I'm too old to try something new.
I think there comes a time when people start taking themselves really seriously, I think, when you're an adult. And I think it's just about like staying in touch with sort of like that childlike sense of curiosity and wonder and just trying new things, because kids aren't afraid to try new things. 100%. They just do things, and they just exist so free-spiritedly and so wholeheartedly. And I think that when we become adults, for some reason, we lose touch with that.
Yeah, I know. We get just so critical.
I was, the other day, I was looking through my old high school art diaries, like my visual arts books. I was so into like art in high school. I had these huge hardcover, like bound them specially. And I remember
we're literally the same person in that way. It's so funny.
And I was looking back through them, and I was like, wow, this girl was just creating so freely. She didn't care about anything. She was just expressing and creating whatever she wanted to. And I was like, that was last year. I was looking back on that, and I feel like creatively I was in a place where I was subjecting myself to a lot of comparison and letting that take a hold of my creativity and like stifling me a bit. And when I was looking through those books, I was like, wow, I really used to be in a place where I was just so free with my ideas and so free with just letting things be expressed. When did I lose that? And that was inspiring for me to look back on my old creative self. And I feel like that helped me sort of be like, why do we get so caught up in this world of comparison and thinking that, we're lesser than, or thinking that our ideas aren't worthy of being expressed in the world? And it's like, they're so worthy. And it's just so like worthy. Letting go of it's just the comparison, the fear, the doubt, all of that you just have to let go of in order to actually just freely express and freely be yourself. And just like literally just like accept that thing of like, I'm just not taking ourselves so seriously, like you said, like just literally just be like, just have the humility. That's so much of it is just like let go of that. Let go of that. Who the fuck cares? Like, I mean, all of us. But like, it's like life is serious. There are serious things in life, but at the same time we have to let go from feeling like everything needs to be done to such a high standard and feeling like everything is so like the be all and end all, because so much of life is playful and exciting and fun. The best part. And that's like the thing. I think I had a episode with Edie, who's a sexologist, and we talked a little bit about play, because like I feel like so many adults use sex as their one place in their life where they can play, but like, and so much can get built up. But like adults need so like to play. Like we need to play. We need to stay in that inner child of like just being silly and experimenting and fucking up and laughing about it, like, and not being like, oh my god, I fucked up, it's the end of it. Like, and I've gotten into those places. Same. Like in year 12, for instance, I was like so fucking serious. Like it's so funny. Was I. It's so funny to think back on, because I'm like, Joy, that was like it doesn't matter. It really didn't matter. Like, whatever. But at the same time, it's not that's like a sort of like a drive that pushed you through, and maybe you were just holding yourself to that standard because you knew your ideas were worthy and you were proud of what you were doing. I think that I also think there was a layer there that was the unhealthy layer that made me a bit maybe too take it a bit too seriously, which was me just trying to prove to myself and to other people that I
could do it.
Yeah.
But then from that place, it was like the ego of being like, yes, no, guys, I can do it. But it's like, no choice.
Yeah.
You're figuring it out, and like, it's not going to be perfect. And then like, I felt so shit about everything that I made, because obviously none of it lived up to my
perfectionist
expectations of myself, which are just the higher standards that no one could live up to.
Yeah. I've definitely been in that place too, just feeling like everything has, in high school as well, feeling like things have to be perfect, but it's like, there's no perfect. It's all just, it's never fully finished. And I think that's the thing with creative projects as well, because there's always more you can do. There's always, and I found that a lot in uni as well, doing architecture, like be working on a project and it's like final night, like trying to finish your models, trying to get all these panels ready, and it's like there's always more I could do, and I'd work myself into such like panic and stress and be like, it's not finished, but then I just have to like in the end just let go and be like, what's done is done, and that's okay.
And people aren't always seeing that.
Exactly.
Like the things that like we're so like, oh, like you know, this is what I expected of myself, like no one else is like, oh my god, I expected that of you.
And half the time, more times than not, the essence of what you're trying to express and what you're trying to create is still there, whether it's like a amazing final finished form or not.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, we reset the cameras and we are back, and I kind of wanted to go back to like your solo travel and stuff, because I think, I don't know, I've definitely like had a lot of fear with solo traveling. I haven't done like a full solo traveling experience yet. I've done like little blimps of it, and it's been,
but starting small, remember?
Yeah, exactly, starting small. Thank you. But it's definitely something I've wanted and like been scared to do and grown so much from when I have done it, and I have so much growth, and I have so many followers that always ask me like, I'm so scared to do it, but I want to do it, because you know, sometimes you want to go on those like adventures by yourself, or like, you know, your friends are doing other things and you don't want to just like, I think so many people don't do things because other people won't join them.
That's
and I think that's something that I've really seen you do, being like, okay, well, I don't have a partner right now, like my friends are doing other things, but I want to do this, I'm gonna still do it. And I have always really admired that about you, and it's definitely made me be like, oh, I can do that. You can like, do it, if I want to go have a picnic and everyone else is busy, still fucking have a picnic.
Exactly. And it's so freeing, just being able to be like, I can do this by myself. Like, it's so nice to have shared experiences and share moments with people, but at the end of the day, you can still do it by yourself, and you can still find joy in that, you know? Thinking about my solo travels, like when I went overseas to London last year and to Amsterdam, to Menorca, that was my first solo trip. And sorry, completely lost the point.
Bro, I always do that. I literally start speaking and I'm like, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Lost the point.
That's what happens in freaking conversations. But let me ask you, because watching your solo travel and stuff, like it was just so cool seeing like a woman just fucking doing her thing, and like you said, like even in New York, like doing samba classes and fucking incense making class in LA and stuff, and like just doing, like, what would be your biggest advice to someone that maybe like wants to go solo travel?
I'd say start small. Like, don't be like, oh my god,
because I'm like, I know you're holding in love.
Like, start small. You don't have to be like, oh my god, I'm gonna go to the other side of the world for a month and solo travel. You could be like, I'm gonna go to, say in Australia, we live in Byron, so I'm gonna go to Brisbane for the weekend by myself. Something small, you know. It doesn't have to be a huge overseas trip. You can start small and work your way up, because I feel like the biggest thing for me with solo travel is like that feeling of capability that I feel. I feel so, even I remember, not solo travel, but last year I went to Splendor Nebraska, the festival here, and I'd wanted to go just for like a day, but none of my friends were going, and I was like, I'll still go. Just go to this festival. And I had a great time. I remember I was nervous. I remember I was on the bus there and I was like, people are thinking about me. Like, what is this random girl just doing by herself on this bus, going to a festival by herself? The reality is no one's fucking thinking about you.
Well, that's what's so funny, is I have the exact same thought. Like, I'll be sitting at a cafe by myself and I'm like, oh my God, everyone around here is thinking, why is she, like, has she been stood up?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, no one's
No one cares.
And like,
that's your ego, like thinking that everything's about you, and you're, you know, no one cares at the end of that. And that is such a freeing, I think that's something that freed me a lot from the fear of doing things by myself. Even just small things like, going out to a cafe or going to have dinner by myself, things like that, going to a bar by myself. I used to always think that people would think some kind of way about me because I'm just like a girl doing something by herself, but no one is thinking about you. And if they are,
if they were,
so what? Doesn't
like,
affect you.
You're literally just having a fun time.
Does not affect you, I went to Splendor by myself, and it was so fun. I was just like, literally, I wasn't not even drinking that much. I think I had like 2 drinks, and I just was like dancing and just vibing, and then you just meet people along the way, and it's so freeing. And I remember I was driving home that night, and I was like, I feel like I could do anything. Like, you feel so capable in yourself, and so like, I can do it. I remember I was like, I should go to New Zealand by myself next week. Like, just like random thoughts. Like, you just feel really capable.
It's so empowering when you do those little tiny things. Like, I freaking remember going to the cinema by myself one time and being like, this is awesome. Like, right? I wouldn't be talking to anyone throughout this movie anyway. So like, I just get to have this experience by myself.
I think it opens a lot up when you let go of that fear of doing things by yourself and that fear of being perceived by other people when you're out, because then you can just go out into the world and you can really just do things. And it seems so simple, but it's not, because of all that fear and all of that internal questioning that we do. Literally. But it's so freeing. It's so freeing. And I think that's just like something that I pursue a lot in life, just like the feeling of freedom and feeling like unbounded and just feeling like I can do what I want to do. And doing things alone brings me a lot of freedom. A lot of freedom.
And then it also makes you really appreciate when you are around people, because it's not like, oh, I have to be around people. It's like, I'm happy by myself. So when I see my friends, like, I fucking want to see my friends, and it makes you really intentional with the connections that you do have, because it's like, you're not just having people around for the sake of having people around. You're having people around because those people genuinely fulfill you. Because I think that when we get into this place where we're afraid, because people are afraid to do things on their own because of, you know, things in their past and their own traumas. And so when you have that fear of doing things, I've lost the point. Just doing things for yourself and stuff. It's so important as well. I feel like so many of us are so scared to be alone, so that like we freaking stay in like toxic relationships or friendships or whatever, because the thought of being alone is so scary. That's where I felt like you were going. That's where I was going. Continue on. Take over. We'll start to fill our lives with these connections that don't actually deeply fulfill us, and then we can end up feeling lonely when we're around people. Like, literally, that's a big thing. Like, just we can be around so many people and still feel lonely. Whereas I can be alone and not feel lonely. Be completely at peace and happy in my solitude. But and so much of like, do you feel like social media also added this layer of like needing to prove this thing of like, I have people in my life, like I have friends? Because I feel like so much of it is like the ego being like, you have to I don't know, prove that you have people in your life, and that's why it is that thing of when you hang out alone or whatever, you'll meet so many people. Because I know for a fact we're not the only people that have had those thoughts. Like, I've talked to so many people and they're like, yeah, like when I'm alone, I'm just like, well, people think I'm weird, or, you know, whatever it is. And it's like, I feel like, there's something about so many people just being like, I need to stay in these friendships or whatever because
of the way it looks.
Rather than the way it actually feels.
Yeah, I think so. And I think with social media as well, like people having people around for the sake of like status or, you know, material things, or just for shallow reasons other than actually a genuine connection. Which ultimately results in just a lonely, hollow connection.
Literally. And I think I talked about this in a different episode as well, but like, I remember like having so many times where I just thought the people around me, because I never like went to heaps of parties in high school and stuff, like I just didn't like drinking and like this in Byron as well, like there is just, like drugs are so normalized and I've just never really entered that world deeply. And yeah, I think that like made me feel like I lost out on a lot of connections from like parties and stuff, because that's where people mingled and met new people. Around. Yeah. But then I grew up and realized like so many of those people that have all those like friends,
they're actually not fulfilled in their connections. I know I see that as well with people, and I'm like, wow, that would feel so isolating to have so many people around you, but
at the end of the day, like, who do you have to actually call when shit hits the fan, or like when something amazing happens as well? Yeah, I know. I feel very grateful that so many of my friendships are that way, and like we've talked about like, you know, boundaries with friendships so much, like learning how to set those healthy boundaries in friendships so that, you know, you do keep the right people in your life, and that the friendships like do hold you in a good place is also just
so important.
As
I've learned this year.
Yeah.
Because I feel like last year I was so heavily doing things solo because I didn't have many friends here. And I also wasn't in a place where I felt like I don't think I realized at the time, but in retrospect, I feel like I wasn't in a place where I could facilitate and create those deeper connections, because I myself was closed, which I didn't realize at the time. But that's what pushed me to do a lot of things alone, I think, because I just didn't have anyone around. But at the same time, I didn't want to miss out and like not do things because there was no one around, because otherwise would I just be sitting there mad at myself and lonely, essentially. So I pushed myself to get comfortable with doing things alone. And I also think that a lot of that came from my own childhood and my own childhood of doing things alone and sort of like being forced to get comfortable with my own company.
Yeah.
And I think that having those foundations to build on for me was super, super helpful. And what I was trying to say before was like, if you don't have those foundations and you're so used to having people around, and even being alone makes you anxious and scared, that can be hard to step into a place where you're like, I'm going to do things by myself. So hard. There's so many levels to it, I think. And like so different for everybody's circumstance.
Yeah. And that's why I think, back to what you're saying, just like start small. Like there's nothing wrong with like those little tiny baby steps, like, because I do know so many people that struggle to be alone. It brings up a lot of, you know, emotions in a way,
and it forces you to listen to yourself, and brings up a lot of thoughts, and that can be scary, because sometimes we don't want to face what we're thinking, face our own inner world. And I think that's where all the work comes in, and like making this a nice place to be, because if it's not, then it's going to be impossible to spend time alone, because you're spending time in your mind, basically. Yeah,
and it's that classic thing of like, you need to do the inner work to then you benefit so much from it by yourself, but also in your relationships. Like, like something I love about our friendship is that even though I think connections are so important, and like it's fine to need people, like it's good to need people and connection. At the same time, it's so nice because like I always feel like with us, like we're both individually doing our own work as well, so that like, you know, if we make a plan and then one of us is really busy and is like, fuck, I'm so sorry, I really wanted to see you, but I have to do this thing, the other person's like, that's all good, I'll see you when I get to see you, like I'm okay, like, but I'll, you know. And I definitely have had friendships in the past where maybe like the inner work hasn't been done, they weren't so comfortable with being by themselves that like they would take something like that as like a huge rejection, and it would feel really draining
for you. 100%.
Which I never feel like that with us, and I think that is because you have done so much work on like just really holding yourself
and understanding myself.
But
definitely.
Then you had to go the opposite way of like, okay, now I need to actually also open up to other people.
I was too far in my own world.
Literally.
But I think that having that foundation has made it a lot easier to be open, because I understand myself, but I just wanted to allow myself to be understood in the company of others, which is what I was so afraid to do in the past.
100%. No, I feel like you've grown literally so much.
This year's been a lot.
This year has been a lot.
I'm like, how is it only June? Please, I've been through a lot this year.
Well, I'm just even thinking about, like, I feel like I've known you for so long,
right?
But we met
last year.
Last year in like December or something. Like it wasn't like...
Wow, I'm actually only just processing this now.
6 months.
That's crazy.
Bro, you've like become a completely different person. Like I'm thinking about the first times we hung out.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. But you might be coming to London.
I might be coming to London. Exciting things ahead.
I've been like subtly dropping hints every time we hang out, being like, oh, you know, it'd be so nice if we did this in London.
Yeah, you're always like, oh, you know, you should. You want to come to London?
Yeah.
Like, oh, just come to London.
And you're like, no.
I'm like, no, the flights are so expensive. I can't.
And
but I think I can.
I'm so excited.
I had this epiphany. I think I can.
Well,
I think I was holding myself back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had like a huge chat, and I was like, you were free.
I'm free. I was like,
allowed to do what you want.
I feel so trapped in life.
Yeah. And we need those reminders because it's so easy, especially even like in a creative field, to be like, this is what I need to do. I need to finish this before I can go to this place or do this thing.
It's like a timeline that we create to ourselves, and I think that I became so attached to this timeline in my head, to this narrative that I'd created for myself, saying that I'm going to do this in X amount of time, and then I'm going to, you know, just a timeline I'd created for myself.
Money, and
exactly.
Then
and I was like, I need this amount of money to do this, to go here, to do this. But I was like, really and truly, I created all that up in my head. That was
no one else
story I told
to
myself.
Yeah.
And I can make the choice to go wherever I want and figure it out.
Yeah. Fucking breathe. So yeah, when this episode comes out, we might actually be in London together, because I think this is only coming out in like August.
Oh my god.
Isn't that kind of
still processing?
Like me tearing up.
Us getting matcha in London together.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. But yeah, also fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Big new chapter.
Scary. Big new chapter. Another layer to this year. It's 2023.
Me and Cam are like queens of calling every day a new chapter.
Honestly, everything's a new chapter.
But
a new
it kind of is, like, thinking about the past 6 months and how much has happened. I'm like, we have had like quite a few chapters.
I think it's become such like a like just such a joke, basically, like taking the piss online, like, oh my god, I'm in my this era, I'm in my that era. But it's like, really and truly, we do go through so many eras in a year, and
literally
it's just exciting and inspiring to see that unfold, I think.
Yeah.
And like having that ability to reflect on yourself and be like, oh wait, shit, I've really entered a new chapter.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just sailing through life and everything is sort of like in this big mush, this big jelly, and it's nice to see the differentiation.
Well, if you're not going through different chapters and eras, are you really growing?
Exactly.
You know, like, you need to be changing and evolving.
Exactly. And the discomfort is a part of that. So try new things. Try
new things is what we're saying.
Step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, step out of your comfort zone, and
because you never know what's on the other side.
You don't.
You never know.
And it's
that's exciting and scary.
What do we say? You have to risk to get reward.
High risk, high reward.
High risk, high reward. We also said just go through the FFTs. Start small. What you have to do is you have to name it.
Yeah, name it.
Have perspective. And then set your expectations.
Yeah, but don't get attached to your expectations. No. Be free with it.
Be free. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Let go of that.
Yeah.
Once you let go of that, a lot becomes easier.
So
letting go of the fear of being perceived as well.
Yeah, that one was and is a huge one for me that I always have to come back to with my job. It's so easy to, you know, record a podcast like this and watch it back and be like, how will people like,
I feel like one thing that helps me with that is just even like putting something out into the world is scary because of the fear of being perceived a certain way.
Yeah.
But just knowing in yourself, in your core, who you are, and being true to that, and being like, yep, someone else might take this and run with it and create a whole fucking narrative about me that is not who I am, but I know who I am.
Yeah, and that comes from like a lot of like inner work and solo time and having those like deep connections with people that really allow you to like get concrete in that like, this is me. This is
and that is many things.
Yeah. All right, well, I think probably we should wrap it up, but I want to ask you one last question, which I ask all my guests. Apart from, I think, one episode I forgot, so whatever. But do you feel like in this time in your life, you need more of like the ego of like self-love, self-worth, you know, power to put yourself out there? Or do you feel like you need more of the humility?
Tricky question. I feel like
makes you think.
It does make you think. Maybe humility.
Yeah.
I think that my ego is Like I think I've been trying to let go of a lot of my ego in the sense of like, this is who I am, and having like a really strong sense of self. I think that was stressing me out for a bit, of just like feeling like I had to be something that was like be able to be boxed in. And I think that I let go of a lot of that, of just like, oh, I don't need to have this strong idea of myself, and I can just like exist in every moment and not constantly be thinking about my ego and who I show up as.
Who am I?
I can just freely
I am me
exist.
Right now, and I might be a different me in 2 seconds, and that's fine. We're evolving, we're multifaceted.
So I think I've been trying to let go of that idea of ego a bit, and maybe lean a bit more into humility.
Beautiful.
Well,
I love you.
I love you too.
I can't wait for like matches in London.
I know. I'm over the moon.
And guys, please check Cameron out. She's amazing. You have your own YouTube channel.
Cam does it.
I
do it.
She does it. Fuck, that's actually
my initials are Can, C-A-N. So I'm always like, I can do it.
Oh my god, that's so good. Is that how you kind of came up with the name?
Yeah, I was like, Cam does it, because my initials are Can, and I can do it. Right?
That's so good. I love that we both have YouTube names that aren't actually our names. Like Joyish came from the place that I was like, like I have too many versions of myself that I can't be all of me, so it's like Joyish.
I love that.
I
love that. Yes, Cam does it. Cameron Nuttall on Instagram.
Yeah, check her out. She's amazing. She's so talented.
Thank you.
Yeah, constantly growing and learning from you, and
you too.
Yeah, being able to create together, learn together, grow together,
and new eras together.
Literally. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Got something out of this. Try something new. Don't be so hard on yourself, and we love you.
We love you.